How do the Israeli military and Hamas compare in size and strength? On Saturday, Hamas attacked a music festival in southern Israel, killing at least 260 people. The surprise air and ground assault included the execution of civilians in the streets. Israel has returned Hamas rocket fire and blocked off the entry of food, fuel, water and medicine supplies to Gaza, as well as prompting the shutdown of Gaza City's only power station as a huge humanitarian crisis unfolds. As of Friday, the conflict has led to the deaths of over 2,800 people, more than 1,500 Palestinians and at least 1,300 Israelis have been killed. Israeli leaders said they are preparing to execute the mission against Hamas, warning every member of the militant group is a dead man. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, mobilized hundreds of thousands of military reservists near the Gaza border ahead of a feared ground invasion. Hamas and the IDF are two very different military powers in size and strength. How do the IDF and Hamas compare in size? According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, ISS, Military Balance 2023, Israel has 169,500 active military personnel in the Army, Navy, and paramilitary. Crucially, a further 465,000 constitutes its reserve forces. It's an army equipped to fight at a fairly high intensity, Dr. Siddharth Kaushal, a military sciences expert with the Royal United Services Institute, told ITV News. Under wartime conditions, its size can go into the hundreds of thousands. In terms of strength and the sort of capabilities it fields, it fits effectively what one would expect from a Western army. How does Hamas compare? The official numbers are unclear. In 2021, the Times of Israel quoted an unnamed senior Israeli commander as saying Hamas had an army of 30,000 men. Obviously, there's also a question of skill and training where there's a considerable difference between the IDF and Hamas personnel serve, Dr. Kaushal said. What weapons do the armies have at their disposal? Israel's defense budget, including U.S. aid, is believed to be around $23.6 billion, £19 billion, in 2023. Alongside its mammoth wartime size, the IDF has a very capable, modern air force, according to Dr. Kaushal, as it is equipped with developed aircrafts like the F-15, F-16 and the F-35. It also has its highly effective Iron Dome missile defense system, designed to shoot down incoming projectiles, the type that Hamas are currently firing. To an extent, the Israeli military does depend on its partnership with the U.S. Joe Biden has already pledged to stand by Israel, seemingly giving the green light for a continued operation which may include a ground incursion, and replenished its Iron Dome munition. The U.S. maintains forward-deployed war stocks in Israel which meet some of the ideas, contingencies, requirements, in a crisis, Dr. Kaushal explains. Hamas, in contrast, is a little more limited with a much lower budget to fight with. There's a qualitative discrepancy in pretty much every category of equipment, said Dr. Kaushal. It's a relatively primitive force. Unlike, for example, Hezbollah to the north, which has adopted some of the trappings and capabilities of a conventional military, Hamas is still really more of an insurgent force that cannot very easily defend terrain against the IDF. It does not have as much of a credible anti-armor capability. And they still lack precision in terms of the rockets they use. The militant group is known to have a long-running relationship with Iran, who has been a financial supporter of Hamas for a number of years. They have also donated military hardware, including missiles, and Tehran is now facing claims they helped instigate Hamas attack at the weekend. What strengths do Hamas have? Despite the technological pitfalls, there are elements Hamas have been able to leverage, Dr. Kaushal explains. The first is asymmetry of cost, particularly when you think of a rocket attack, he said. Because interceptors are very expensive, for Israel, costing around $80,000 to $100,000, and the rockets they are intercepting are quite cheap. There has been a growing threat to Israel's air and missile defense systems over the years of just being saturated, so that has posed a challenge. The second crucial component working in Hamas' favor, an element they can exploit, is the human terrain of Gaza. The fact that Hamas can force the IDF into battling in an urban environment, in an area where it has significant underground infrastructure and it's quite well dug in, said Dr. Kaushal. Where even quite capable modern militaries can struggle to root out comparatively primitive opponents. So although it's obviously a massive asymmetry in terms of specific capabilities, there are certain advantages of both geography and cost which Hamas appears to be trying to leverage. What about Hamas? Hamas is one of the most heavily armed guerrilla organizations in the world, Professor Clark says. It lacks the same type of armored vehicles as Israel for various reasons, including that it would be a very visible target for Israeli strikes, he says. They operate from utility vehicles like Land Rover Discoveries and mount a weapon on the back, like a .30 caliber heavy machine gun. These can be very mobile and have been used to devastating effect. And while Israel has its formidable Iron Dome air defense system, Hamas has been able to overwhelm it with sheer numbers of rockets like it did in recent days. It uses different versions of the Iranian-made Fateh 110 surface-to-surface ballistic missiles which are road-mobile and can carry warheads weighing up to 500 kilograms. Hamas also has anti-tank missiles similar to the US Stinger. Hamas are very well equipped with certain sorts of things and they are trained to use them, Professor Clark said. Asked how many fighters Hamas has, Professor Clark said they have previously been estimated to have around 10,000, but added that, when violence flares they can mobilize lots of people. So their numbers can go from 10,000 committed Hamas people to anything up to 40,000, 50,000, he added.